Today, I am going to be destroying not just one, but two of my builds in my Satisfactory 1.0 playthrough. But why? Simply put, I am not happy with how these projects look. The whole point of this YouTube playthrough is so I can try and do things a bit differently. However, there's a problem. These two builds are built directly on top of active train stations. They just so happen to be the most important train stations in our entire playthrough. And that's because these train stations bring all of our crude oil and compact coal coming in from the blue crater lake all the way around to that station and this station. The compact coal and crude oil then goes over there to make our heavy ore residue, which then makes all of our plastic, which then makes our fuel, which then makes our turbo fuel, which then makes our rocket fuel all the way over there. So essentially, if we can't get our crude oil coming in through here, then we can't make our rocket fuel, and essentially our world goes into a meltdown because we've got no power. This project is incredibly risky. One wrong move can completely destroy our playthrough. Will I end up regretting this? Well, let's find out. My name's the Valharden Pickle, and this is why I'm destroying this project in Satisfactory 1.0. Honestly, I've been meaning to do this now for a while, but the truth is I got a bit distracted with this project over here. This is where we are making all of our heavy ore residue, as you can tell by the purple colours absolutely everywhere, and a bunch of yellow as well, but this is because we've got too much heavy ore residue, so that's not particularly a massive problem. I'm not going to do a tour in this video, but if you would like to see a factory or a world tour, do let me know in the comments down below because I'll be more than happy to do so. I just don't know if people would be interested in one. Right, so the question is, where do we actually begin? Because this might not seem like a massive project, but it really is. And of course, again, I don't want to delete any of the actual rail itself. I think for this part at least, the actual foundations aren't too bad. I've worked a little bit on the inside. I still want to add something down here, which we can definitely do in today's video. But in regards of all of our logistics and the way everything actually works, I'm very, very happy with this part of the actual build itself. Obviously, we have to add something down there as well. That's completely fine. So the foundations of this thing are actually okay. But I feel like everything above here, of course, not including the actual station itself, needs to go. So I might as well explain why exactly I'm getting rid of everything. Well, to put things nice and simple, in this playthrough, I want to try and challenge myself, both logistically and, of course, in regards of building as well. And I'm just not very happy with the way this project turned out. So I'm going to get rid of it, I'm going to build something a lot better, and I want to feel proud about this project, so that's the main reason as to why I'm doing that. Now, I have kept this bit underneath here the exact same. I do want to try and change a few things, but for the most part, it's completely fine. It was mostly just a part up here that I wasn't a very big fan of. So now that we've got rid of our previous design, what exactly am I thinking of? Well, I haven't got an idea in mind at all. Literally nothing. My mind is completely blank. Let's take a minute to try and think of a design. I think some sort of rectangular shape could be interesting there, and maybe a tower going relatively high up. And like I was saying a bit earlier, this is not the only structure we are getting rid of. If we zoom in a little bit, that structure is also going to go as well. And it's roughly the same sort of dimensions as this. So what I was thinking of doing is having one tower up here, one tower down over there as well, and sort of like joining them together in some sort of bridge over this structure. Then somewhere in the middle, we're going to have a dangling sign. I don't know if it would be like my channel logo or maybe like a rocket fuel logo. I don't know. But I want to have something dangling over this building here whilst these two towers are connecting. That could be quite cool. It sounds very ambitious, but let's give it a shot. There's no chance of this happening today. At this stage, I don't think I actually want to get blueprints involved. Let's just do some of this work ourselves. And the first thing I want to try and do is surround this thing using our low barrier architecture piece. Because I absolutely love this thing, especially in cooperation with the window pieces as well. For example, if I was to add that there, go into walls here for a quick second, full frame window, just bang in a couple of these, and then suddenly, oh, that doesn't look dreadful. Of course, eventually we're going to build it up, maybe even get rid of this corner here so we make the build look a little bit less rectangular. But I'm pretty happy with that design. Regarding our height, I think that we're going to go somewhere up to about here. That should look okay. From this wall here, let's go up by about 3, let's say. Just like so. Then add in our double ramp, just like that. Close the top off. And now we're left with this brutalisque sort of design, but obviously we're not necessarily going for that. So let's try and shake things up here a little bit. Okay, I think this is fine for now. Hopefully it'll look a little bit nicer though when we do the other side. But one thing I do want to try and show you though is actually underneath here. Because yes, I finally built this. It's essentially just a little bit of light and some support beams up there as well. I feel like that's all this area actually needs. Okay, let's try and continue this now on the other side and let's see how this is actually going to end up looking. Surprisingly, no, I haven't actually broken my train system just yet. Great success. Before I show you what I've done just to the left of me, I did say that I did want to try and actually get rid of this wall a bit earlier. Oh. Where does this lead us? Okay, so that's our compact core coming out of the first train station. All the way around there, okay. Then just behind here is where I thought I was going to come out of. There we go, over here, because towards the introduction of today's video, I did say that I wanted to try and do something with this room. So I think what I might do is just add a staircase from this side, connecting to this side of the train station itself. So let's try that now. Overall, I'm very happy with how this area turned out. Am I ever actually going to be down here? Most likely not. But I've got everything that I'm ever going to need. We've got our awesome shop, we've got our MAM, we've got our equipment workshop, the item workshop, everything there, which is fantastic. Some storage containers there as well. And overall, I think this area looks pretty good. I'm rather happy with it. Maybe we should get a light up there, but I don't want to have to, like, tuck away all the cables in other places. I don't know. That would be way too complicated and a bit of a waste of my time to try and do. Oh, I did it anyway, and this actually brings me on to one of my very few complaints about this game. Lighting in Satisfactory is absolutely massive. This thing is well over one foundation wide, so I don't really use much lighting in my game, other than signs. One thing that I forgot to show you that I added in here as well, is I actually created a small bridge across here, because I do like to see a little bit of conveyor belt activity. Anyway, let's finish working on the station. And here we have it. The first words that come to mind are bland, boring, and a little bit annoying. Anyway, enough about myself. I think the actual build is okay. There's a couple more tweaks and additions I can add along the way, which is fine. I do want to try and replicate this now on the other side if I so can. I have added in this sloped roof up here as well, which I think looks decent. I might even try and make it double sloped, which essentially means doing something a little bit like this. Although I'm not sure how that's going to work with our little pattern there. It's okay, but probably not. In fact, if I leave it like that, that could be a bit interesting. But what we can then do up here, because we've now got ourselves a nice flat surface, is just build our rectangular platform out there. And then hopefully start our tower, which should be great. I think for our foundations, we are off to a great start. Okay, so we ran into a little bit of a problem. Before, our train track used to cut off here to the right, and stick roughly to the outside of this thing, then sharply turn somewhere over here. However, I didn't like the way it was cutting through this part of the build. So what I've done is I've replaced the track and I've actually built it inside of here instead, meaning that the turn's a little bit sharper, but it shouldn't get in the way of our builds. Additionally, I can't really replicate what I did on the other side over here, just because, again, of that rail, which sort of gets in the way of everything. So I think what I'm going to try and do is think of a slightly different design here, then show you what that is in a couple of minutes time. However, I still want to try and keep everything below here, so hopefully I shouldn't have to get rid of anything, fingers crossed. So this is the design we ended up going with, and overall I'm actually quite happy with it. I know it's not the most complex structure in the world, but it does what I need it to do. I like the glass in here as well, so you actually get to see the train station itself, whereas before it was completely covered in walls, which I didn't particularly enjoy that much. The lighting isn't too complex. I could have added more, I could have added less, but I feel like the little bit of lighting that we have over here is actually completely fine. The only thing that I don't particularly like though is these massive walls I've added here, but the reason why I've added this though is to give it like some layers. So you got this layer over here, the glass layer, then you got this, and you got that, and then you got the layer up there as well. So it gives it different levels, which I think really adds to a project. But it looks a little bit bland, so I'll try and think of something to add there eventually. Yeah, overall though, I'm pretty happy with this side. Now when it comes to our entrance, I kept things nice and simple. I don't exactly know what design I've gone with, but I think it looks okay, so I've committed with it. And when you actually go on the inside here, obviously I haven't done the back side just yet. This is rather empty, but I think it could look rather nice. I'll probably end up painting over this a little bit here as well, adding some pillars maybe, just give it that auditorium feel potentially. And something that I love to do as well is I love to get these inverted ramps, and I love to do something like this. I do it quite a lot on my projects because it just doesn't really make a wall look too flat. Like when you look at this, for example, it just looks like a regular wall. whereas when you add this here, it makes the build feel far more complete. And just like that, the backside is now done, which is great. I also have worked a bit on the interior here as well. It is nothing special, but it does what I need it to do. Of course, I've added some more signs along here as well, because I don't particularly like the lighting in the game like I previously touched upon, whereas the signs I feel like do a much better job. I've also added some decoration up here as well, so I've closed off this area here. I've then added more signs on the roof, which I think reflects beautifully off of that chrome colour, so I use that quite a lot in my builds. And again, that's essentially it for this area down here. But I think this foundation turned out better than I thought it would. So yeah, that's essentially this part now completely finished. The next part I then want to try and focus on in this part up here, because I think what I want to try and do is have some sort of like squared foundation here, probably a bit bigger than this, maybe a couple more foundations out on each side, with maybe like a semicircle there and then another semicircle over here as well. So the dimensions of this project is 6 by 19 foundations long. I think what I want to try and do is build something out round about there, build it back by around about, I suppose we can go 5 foundations if I really wanted to, so let's do that. And then eventually this will then come out here, and then have to mimic that on the other side, so that we'll end up with something like this. This side and that side over there will essentially be smaller towers, whereas this main big tower here is going to stretch, again, roughly 20 foundations up into the sky. Hopefully that should work, but I suppose there's only one way to find out. Okay, we've got ourselves our foundation, let's try and build something, and hopefully it won't look terrible. Fingers crossed. Okay, so some time has passed now, and I've made a few different blueprints, as you can see there in my hotbar. The only catch is, I don't necessarily know how they're going to look next to each other. The first blueprint I made though is this, which if I'm honest, I actually really like the look of. It has like this very weird foundation that I quite like, and this part of the blueprint actually sort of works with this one here as well. You've got a little bit of glass, you still got that concrete, so overall I do quite like this. And of course the other side has the exact same effect. However, again, from this side, things look a little bit crap. So I do want to try and go up, and also out here a little bit as well, which is the reason as to why I've made a couple of these blueprints, starting off with this blueprint right here, which I've just called Building 005 Wall 2. And essentially, I'm going to plop this thing down right about here, I believe. I think maybe one over. There we go. And essentially, this is what this blueprint's going to look like. So actually, that is, wait, one in this direction. There we go. That's perfect now. So if we just plop that down there, then grab this blueprint and plop this down, I believe right about there. That should be right. Let's do it. And this is what this blueprint's going to end up looking like. And again, it's my very first time seeing this, so hopefully it looks good. And, okay, that doesn't look too bad. Now let's try and go up a little bit, which is easier said than done, because unfortunately my hover pack doesn't quite go up this high, which is a little bit of a shame, but it is what it is. So let's select blueprint mode, which luckily is already selected. We'll then place this down. Can we go 3 times? We can go up 3 times. And I think that's about the height I want to try and go to. And I do realize that is taller than 20 foundations, but I think that could end up looking quite nice. Okay, you know what? That doesn't look too bad. I do want to try and work on the other side as well, see how that's going to end up looking, and maybe even change this a little bit so that the windows match. As of right now, the actual design of the inside of this thing looks a little bit weird. However, I do still want to try and add in this wall if I can. And I have gone with a design that's fairly similar, I suppose, to the other 2 designs. Let's just try and move this in by quite a bit, actually. There we go, just like that. And let's see what this is going to end up looking like. Hopefully it will be good, because I'd rather not have to redesign everything. I feel like it could be a bit too far in. Yeah, okay, I think that's the problem. This looks a little bit weird, so what I'm going to do is bring this out by 1 foundation, add in an extra wall behind, and then that should make things look a little bit better. Because as of right now, yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah, okay, that looks a little bit better. We'll take it. Okay, so more time has passed now, and this is the progress we have made. Currently, this looks like a bit of a mess, and I'll explain what I'm doing here in just a moment. But as of this main build itself, I think it's now looking a bit decent. I have actually added in an extra layer of glass here in the middle, because I think that looks a lot better. It was looking a bit too concrete forward, whereas now it doesn't look too bad. I've also started to work on this part over here, and essentially all I'm doing is just adding in this big concrete pillar down the sides, and then also in this corner adding in the frame wall over there, and also on this side here as well. I managed to do this last one. Looks pretty good, and I'm actually quite happy with this project so far. I have also added in some decoration here as well. I've gone with our classic 1 meter wall decoration thing, which I've done over there as well. Speaking of things that have to be done, let's talk a bit... Oh dear. So what now? Essentially what I want to try and do is build a bridge up to around about the center of this project right here, which should be, in theory, roughly here. Exactly here, I think. Yep. So that's to go up to around about there. We then build that tower, build the bridge over from that side to connect it to there, and then we essentially just hang something down from the middle. I know it's a bit of a weird concept, and I've not really tried anything like this before, but that's the reason as to why I'm doing it. It's new for me, it's unique for me, and I think it'll be pretty fun. When I think this project's almost finished, I'm quite happy with the way it looks. I might add something on top, even though I'm not quite sure as of just yet, and of course, there's a problem with that. Long story short, essentially the dimensions of this build are different to that build. So I've essentially got to redo most of this bottom part now to make it somewhat similar to over there, despite it looking rather similar. Unfortunately, it's not, which makes this part of the project a little bit more tedious. But hopefully we can get it done, because I think it will generally be worth it, and it will look really cool, especially from this angle here. Seeing the bridge fully intact as well, I can't wait, and hopefully it will be good. Yeah, I'm not quite ready to start on that just yet. Let's head back over here. Let's completely finish this tower and this part of the bridge, so then we can start on the next part, because that's going to be a pretty tedious challenge. And there we have it. Tower 1 is complete. And I am absolutely loving the way this thing is looking. I think this build will actually end up looking pretty good when we add in the second tower, although I'm still quite skeptical. I don't know what it's going to look like. I haven't really built anything like this before. So hopefully it won't look completely crap. That's the goal, at least. Yeah, I'm still very happy with the way this is looking so far. I do think from this angle it does look a bit chunky, a bit thick. But again, I feel like that's actually okay. As you can see at the very top there, we did actually add an extra blueprint. It's just a little tiny addition to the top there, but I feel like it works. Now, like previously mentioned, I don't necessarily remember what I did here. So obviously I'm going to remove everything. But things like this track also have to go. And the bit underneath here, like, it doesn't particularly look that great either. So I'm going to see what I'm going to do. There are certain parts in here that I do actually quite like. And I've done an interior in here, if I remember. Yeah. So I don't want to get rid of any of this, obviously, because it's quite important. And I think it looks quite nice. But of course, everything on top of here is going to go. And also, this track's going to go as well. And it's going to get moved somewhere in there. So this could get quite tricky, but as usual, there's no better time to start than the present. So let's begin this thing. That took a lot longer than I thought it would, but either way, our main structure is now gone. I've also worked on this part underneath here as well, because before, and I don't think I actually showed this, it was a complete and utter mess. I really hated the way it looked. We've still got the rail over here. I'll fix that in the next cutscene. And again, everything underneath here is still the exact same, but as you can see, it doesn't necessarily look nice, and that's a pretty big problem. So what I'm going to try and do now is join this corner somewhere into this rail, just like what we did on the other side, to make this feel a lot more complete. This is most likely going to entirely go, and I'm going to incorporate the rail a lot closer into this main rail train station itself, because that's a lot easier to do. And I'll come back in hopefully not too long when I've got the first main foundation sorted and ready to go. So let's try and add in our new station, and hopefully this won't take too long. But I've got a bad feeling it is, because there's a lot of stuff here I need to change. A lot. And just like that, we have completed the main foundation area of the second tower. Except things are a little bit different, because this time, I've actually done something a bit different with the rail. Rather than incorporating it inside of the actual build itself, I've instead chosen to do it around the outside, because for this example it actually made things a little bit easier, so that's the reason as to why I've done that. Still got to add some things in here, for example the lights, and then like the wall of barriers along there, so it's not exactly completed. However, the main structure and foundation itself is now done. One thing I do want to try and start working on though, is placing in our very first blueprint for this second tower, just so I know where everything is going to go, because bear in mind, this has to line up perfectly with this. If it's one foundation off, the entire thing has to go. So this next part's actually very, very important to get right. So here's something pretty cool. Completely forgot that I did this, but there's an area down here. It serves zero purpose. but I think it looks quite nice. Oh, holy lag, that was terrible. Maybe placing down 500 signs isn't a good idea. Nah, it can't be. So how wide is this actual project itself? It is 19, which means that the 10th foundation is going to be the middle one, which should be this. Okay, fantastic, that does indeed line up, great. So what I'm going to try and do now is go over to our blueprints, and I'm going to try to remember what blueprint we need. Is it this one? No. Is it this one? No. So it must be this one. I think that's the correct blueprint. And I think that should be good. Just to confirm, I would actually place down one of these here as well. Snap it onto this blueprint right here. And again, that should be good, I believe. I try and rotate that around. Okay, there we go. That should be right. Nope, there is a gap here. Okay, let's try and fix that. Okay, hopefully this time it will be a bit better. And it looks pretty good. Okay, great. Fantastic. So that should be exactly what we need. Let's try and do this end piece and then that end piece over there. Then again, hopefully everything should be okay. Okay, it's the next day in real life now, and we have finally finished our first floor. And everything here seems to be alright. I'm really liking the way that these towers are starting to look. So now it is time to build up. And how high do I have to build up? I think it's like 1, 2, 3. So it's 4 blueprints of this, and 1 blueprint at the very top there. It shouldn't take too long, hopefully. The second tower has now been complete. Now it's time for the difficult part. I've got to try and connect both of these 2 bridges together. And I think these should be exactly symmetrical. I've made sure about 3 or 4 times now that everything is lined up perfectly fine. So it should all be good. I believe all I've got to try and do now is go up to there. And then start our bridge where they should hopefully meet in the middle. I do want it to go and like overlap each other a little bit. So it looks a little bit like a Viking roof, for example. But for the most part, this shouldn't be, hopefully, too difficult to do. As long as they line up exactly over the middle here, then we are okay. We can then continue the rest of the project. If they don't line up, I might have to get rid of everything I've just built. So this is quite an important stage, and hopefully we can get it correct. Because again, if not, I've just wasted about an hour doing this. I'm falling to my death. Okay, the bridge has now been completed. And it does look a little bit weird, so I think what I'm going to end up doing is adding in additional supports up there. See what I've done with those supports, the way it attaches from the actual building to the bridge itself? I think I want to try and do that up there, and of course mimic that then on this side. However, I do feel like this is directly in the middle. I have made sure, and I think that's okay. It is missing 1 block up there, which is a bit frustrating, so I have to put all my scaffolding back, but that's okay. But I think for the most part, this will look fine. I think what I'm going to end up doing is just spelling out TVP, which obviously stands for the Valhalla Pickle. I think it also stands for some Polish news channel, but I am not a Polish news channel, believe it or not. But even if we were just to completely ignore this bridge idea, I think the actual 2 towers themselves and this main hub here in the middle looks really good in comparison to what we had before. Again, even if this is not my most proudest build in the world, which I don't think it will be, it still is much better than before, and personally, I am far happier with it. There we go, everything has now been fully removed. We are definitely in the final stages of this project now. However, as you can see, I have added this painted beam directly in the middle of, well, this build, the unpackager facility, straight up there to try and see if this is indeed the middle of the build. And as you can see, yes, everything here lines up absolutely perfectly, which is fantastic. Means I have built this correct, which makes a change, honestly. However, that is all, of course, temporary. So what am I going to have up here instead? Well, I've designed something that I think will look quite nice, but honestly, I've got absolutely no idea how this is going to end up looking. Does that work? I mean, that almost works to what I wanted to try and do. Okay, great. Is this in the middle, though? I think it should be. So we're going to build out this scaffolding a little bit more here. And try and plop this down again, and I do want it to go somewhere along here. So, judging from this angle, no, that is not in the middle. Now it most certainly is in the middle. Fantastic. Now, coming back around over here, and this again doesn't appear to be in the middle. Whereas, I would say there, it does. So, now I'm going to place this thing down. We're going to select this steel pillar, which I don't think I've actually used much this playthrough, in all honesty. I'm then going to move it up there. And that's our little sign that I've added in the middle. It's nothing special. It's actually nothing nothing special at all, but I quite like the way it looks. And I think hopefully it will end up looking quite nice. I do want to get rid of this little bit of scaffolding, and then I'll show you what this looks like, because obviously this is my first time seeing it as well. And the final reveal, bam. It looks a bit small. If I'm honest, it is definitely a bit small. So I think what I might do is have 3 of those signs, one there, then one a bit lower there to the left, and one a bit lower to the right, all that have one letter individual, so like T on the far left, V in the middle, then P on the far right. And then of course that will still spell out the Valhalla pickle, and it won't look as small, I think. But other than that, I would say this project is fully complete. I must say, I'm actually quite surprised with how this turned out. I mean, I don't often go into projects with much faith, but no, I'm actually quite happy with this. I think it turned out better than I thought, and quite different to how I imagined it would be. I think definitely we are going to make some additions there to the sign in the middle, but I think either if I just make that sign a bit bigger or I just add 3 signs, it should end up looking quite nice. But the funny thing is, this sign looks tiny, but it's 5 foundations wide. It's just that this project is so large that it makes even a pretty big sign or a pretty big blueprint look tiny. So I am going to make some additions there. Obviously this building in the background, which I haven't really talked about, this is a work in progress. That is obviously not finished, and we've still got a lot more to do here around our rocket fuel factory. But for the most part, I am happy with how this turned out. Do let me know your comments down below as well. I do apologize if this video came out a bit late. I had no idea this would take me about 7.5 hours to do over multiple days, but we got it done in the end, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget to drop a like if you did, and subscribe if you really want to. I do upload quite a lot of Satisfactory content. But without further ado, thank you very much for watching. Before we go, a massive thank you to our channel members: The Bearded Cobra, Jao, Variance, Nicole Still Plays, Asuna, Natormal, Yummy Kill Burns, Chaos Rising, Scott and Hattie, and Mau Mau. If you decide to become a Knight of the Realm for just £2.99 a month, you get access to channel-only emotes, unique badges, and also shoutouts in videos. Memberships are the best way to support my channel, but you don't have to become a member. Even just by watching today's video, you are supporting the channel massively. Here's a couple more videos I've made that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Have an amazing rest of your day, and remember, Godspeed.